All right. Well, Jerome, thank you again for joining me on the Path to Epic show.
Thank you for
And
having me.
so you're welcome. So you've been an influence and inspiration to keep me going with this show. When I lose momentum, you always remind me to keep going every day. And I appreciate your support in this journey. It's been fun.
Yes, sir.
So thank
Yes,
you for
sir.
joining me here. So you encouraged me to experiment more with video, which I think is a great idea. People really like video. They like to see your face and see your
Mhm.
expressions, and it just makes it's a stronger connection. I think there's a place for audio, and it's convenient for when you're exercising or running or doing other things. But
Mhm.
people also like to sit down and just watch some video. So I think
Right.
both is a great idea. And I really like this technology, Zoom, because it allows you to record both the video and an audio. It does it for you automatically, two separate
Ni-
files.
Nice.
And I have some friends that worked at Zoom. It just went public. It's a great company, great product. And it really is what I would say WebEx was meant to be, a decade ago. But now the technology's here. It's an incredible technology. And um, so I'm pretty excited about it. So one of the things that really strikes me about you, Jerome, is that you take action and you commit to action and you're consistent. How do you do that? What drives you to do that? Why are you so consistent? I struggle with that a little bit, and most people do. What allows you to podcast every single day?
Yeah. Man, great question, brother. You know, and this is so funny because I've said this again and again and again, how much of an influence and a catalyst you were for me in the beginning. I mean, I still remember the sticky note that I have with the green lettering of the marker that you wrote in the office and just handed to me out of nowhere. And it was like one word, the word was action. Action. And it was like we both we both knew, like, we gelled so well because we both knew that we struggled with the same things, but we wanted to inspire others. We wanted to have an impact on this generation and the next. We knew that we had a message, and we knew that it could be stronger. So in figuring out how to gain that momentum, I had to really play a little bit with my psychology. I had to kind of get a little bit creative with putting episodes out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? To be very honest with you, I had to create a situation that was painful for me. I read somewhere that we all are motivated mostly by two things, and that is we either run towards pleasure or move away from pain. So we're either heading towards pleasure or we're avoiding pain.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the motivating factors in our life. So I figured, okay, if it's not pleasure for me, if I'm not motivated by pleasure, if if pleasure isn't enough, I mean, to keep me consistent day in, day out, then pain will have to do. Pain will have to do for now. So I had to create a painful situation. And what I actually did was I got an accountability partner.
Nice, smart.
Yeah, so one of my friends from South Carolina, shout out to Walt from South Carolina. I called him up, and I gave him I just told him, simply, hey, I'm doing this run at it. I think it was in May or June. I'm pretty sure it was May. But I said, for the whole month of May, if you catch me, you know, not uploading a podcast episode or a YouTube episode for the whole month of May, then I owe you $200 or something like
Wow.
that. Like, so I made it painful for me, and he was like, "What? Like, all I gotta do is encourage you to put out the episodes that are already helping me, already, and then, and if you don't do it, then you gotta pay me, then I make money." It was a win-win for him, you
Yeah.
know. So it created a bond between us that was stronger, but then it also created a motive for me that I knew if I didn't push out this positivity, if I didn't put out this content, then, I was gonna, I had to be a man of my word. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So creating that situation allowed me to do a podcast episode every day for the whole month. And then after that, what I realized was even more, it was like, you know what? Even though I made it painful for me, whether I was on the train, whether I was taking a trip, I would still get the episode done. Things happen in our life every single day. We have struggles, we have trials, tribulations, like unexpected things can come in our life.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless of whatever happened to me, I still managed to get an episode out every single day. And then that taught me that it was possible. It was like, okay, even though
Yeah.
I created this painful situation, I still did it. So I was like, okay, well, then that proves that it can be done, regardless of the money situation. It proved to me, and I feel like people have to prove to themselves that it can be done, regardless of whatever situation. I mean, people have families, people have kids, and they still put out more work than I do, so that
Of course.
inspires me as well. So yeah, to each his own, but that was my method. That was the method that I used.
That's smart. So you put your money where your mouth was, really, right? You
Yeah, I had to.
that's a smart, because if you don't do it yourself, no one's probably going to hold you accountable to your own podcast or your own show or your own business. Only you can.
Mhm.
So that's amazing that you said, all right, well, I'm going to put this risk out there that it's going to cost me money. And it is
Yeah.
interesting that studies have shown that we are more motivated by preventing loss than we are by gain.
Mhm. Yeah.
So like the losing $200 was probably a painful thought for you, because you worked really hard for that $200.
Right. That's a form of energy. Like I've put in energy and time to be able to acquire that amount. So it's like knowing that if I don't put in energy and time to work towards my dream, that is going to be wasted. I'm just going to have to give it up free, then that was a motivator for me. And you can use that in any area of your life, whether it's going to the gym and working out. Are you motivated by pleasure? Motivated by having a better looking body, getting the woman of your dreams? Are you motivated? What are you motivated by? Or are you avoiding pain? Are you motivated by being weak? Are you motivated by the way you look in the mirror? You want to be stronger. You know what I mean? Like, what are your motivating factors that are unique to you, and use those to tweak those to help you, push yourself accordingly. Yeah.
And what's the drawback of just chasing pleasure?
Wow. Oh man, I've never been asked that question, but that's a very good one. What are the drawbacks of chasing pleasure? Well, it can leave much to be desired. I mean, if we chase pleasure, especially from an outside source, it is in my opinion that it will always be something that you'll never quite be full. You'll never quite be full from an outside source. But if you're able to, have pleasure from an inside source, then that is a lot more long lasting. I feel like every time in every instance in my life, whether it be food, entertainment, movies, video games, any escape that I wanted to seek pleasure on the outside, maybe served me for that time, but it
Mm-hmm.
was very limited. It was very fleeting. The
Yeah.
sensations, feelings, the emotions that I got from derived from that pleasure were only very, finite and very small in comparison to the pleasure that I now build from the inner work that I've been doing. So that's a very good question, man. Yeah.
So a mentor of mine taught me something very important that a lot of people may not know, is that you cannot have pleasure without pain, and you can't have pain without pleasure.
Ooh, yes, yes, I do
So
like. Mhm.
if you have to have pain and pleasure in life, why not that choose the pain that will give you the pleasure you want? So doing
Yeah,
the work to gain the pleasures of life that you want, creating the lifestyle you want, if you're willing to endure some pain, such
yeah.
as working out at the gym and getting sore muscles for the body you want and dream of, why not be
Mhm.
in control of the pain rather than chasing pleasure and then having life throw pain at you?
Woo, woo. Say that again. Yeah. Yeah, man. Because pain is coming regardless. You're right. There must be balance. It's a great equalizer. So, if you're just chasing pleasure, 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 eventually, it's gonna get painful. And then are you able to endure that pain? Are you able to, to withstand that pain if you haven't put yourself through the pain intentionally to get towards the pleasure that you desire? That's a great point that you make. That is a great point, I think. Yeah.
I think the simplest example for people is if, like, let's say you do cocaine, right? You take a drug and you're going to get this immense short-term pleasure, but guess what's going to happen tomorrow morning when you wake up?
Mm.
You get to pay the price of that pain. Whereas if you go run a mile today and you go through that pain, you push yourself, when you get done, you're going to get that endorphin rush, that feeling, right?
Yeah.
Or if you
Yes.
work on a project and it's painful, it's hard, it's a lot of work, you spent the whole day working on it, and then you get that project done, what are you going to feel at the end? You're going to feel like you've accomplished something. You're going to feel great. So it's just a way of thinking, when do I want to, what kind of pain am I willing to endure, and when do I want to, can I be in control of when I have pain and what pain it is, and then gain the pleasures I want in life out of that pain, use that pain as a tool to get what I want, rather than just, I'm going to eat a bunch of candy, I'm going to feel great for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to feel sick in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Man. Woo. Yes. Yeah. These are things that more of us, I think, should realize and be aware of. Yeah.
And actually, Tony Robbins talks about it too a lot. He's starting to talk more about it lately, which I think is great, is that idea of just actually proactively choosing the pains you want in your life that will get you the goals and pleasures you want in life. And it's like kind of like counterintuitive that you have to have pain to get pleasure, but it is actually true.
Yeah.
And the
You're
more
right.
you chase the pleasure, the more pain's going to come at you.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, right?
Mm-hmm. It is fascinating. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I just really do admire that you do take action. You're consistent about it. That's a cool hack that you mentioned about putting your money where your mouth is. Is there anything else that drives you? Like, why would you even put yourself in that situation to lose $200? A lot of people wouldn't even think to do that at all. What
Wow.
drives you?
Wow. I mean, I had to do something. I knew in my mind, in my hardest of hearts, like I knew what I wanted. I knew the outcome. I knew the vision that I had in my mind. But I knew what I was doing right now wasn't working. You know what I mean? Like I knew the things out. I was like, at the very least, I know what I'm doing right now is not working. You know what I mean? So I'm willing to try. I'm willing to strive to do something different, to have a different result, because we keep hearing all the time the definition of insanity, doing the same things over and over and expecting things to change, and how things don't change until we ourselves change, and just figuring out for myself, okay, how do I engineer this change? Like, how do I do this in my life? And really just sitting with myself in silence and just figuring out what is the way. And I mean, I believe that just like Jim Quick says, I listen to Jim Quick's podcast sometimes, and he says he believes that questions are the answer. Like when we ask ourselves these deep probing questions, all of a sudden, as if by magic, we start to gain answers. The answers, they start to come, whether it's from within us or from an outside source. We get the answers that we're looking for when we ask the right questions. So as I started to ask more questions, okay, how do I do this? How do I achieve my goals? Like, how do I get myself to do the things that, because even Dan Locke, he's like, don't do what you love what you do, right? He's like, honestly, if I did what I loved, I mean, if I did what I loved every day, I would be playing video games every day. I would be eating hot wings. I wouldn't be fasting. Today is the 21st day of my fast. I've got like a few more days to go. I'm fasting for a whole month. You know what I mean? Like that discipline that you have in one area starts to bleed into all areas. So now I wouldn't be talking to you, on the 21st day with no food in my belly and not knowing that I could even do that. So to figure out, I want to answer your question, to figure out how I was able to do this, I had to gain some help. I had to get some wisdom from outside areas. I did have to draw on other methods that weren't really known to me, but to try something out of the norm, to try something that had never been tried in my life before, to get a desired result. Because like I said before, I knew what I was doing right now was not the answer. So, it just took that courage, to step out on faith, to take that step without seeing the whole staircase, and just say, you know what, just like Grant Cardone, the 10X, it's like, commit before you're ready. Commit before you know how it's going to all play out. Already just be committed. Just be committed, So
I
that helped
love
me.
that. I love that. And that's something I struggle with, is committing to something before I know how to do it. That's a tough
Mhm.
thing to do. You have to like believe in yourself and just believe you're
Right.
going to find a way to do it, even though you don't know how you're going to do it, and put a timeline on it, and like data points that I have to achieve this by this date. It's a scary thought, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be. It can be. It can be at first. It definitely can be. Yeah.
I struggle with it. It was just the other day we had a meeting about a project I'm working on, and I wasn't ready to commit to a deadline to launch the project. I felt like I got to figure out all the steps first and see how long it's going to take me. And I was dealing with it. It's not an easy do. How do you do that? How do you decide, all right, I'm just going to do this by this date and I'll figure it out? Like,
Wow. I'm speaking from my own experience, because I know and I understand that everyone is different. We're all dealing with different, circumstances, situations in our lives that create those different scenarios, in our pursuit. So everybody's journey is different. But I do believe that if you truly desire, you have a burning something within you, like we keep hearing, these motivational speakers talking about that burning desire. If you find it within you to just say enough is enough, and to just go out on a limb, commit before you're ready, and just say that, you know what, I'm going to learn on the journey. Like, whatever it is that I need to know, like, I'm going to find out as I'm going. My friend, they tell me the hurry up and wait method. It's like, what is it? It's hard to be patient and keep going. They say be patient, but keep going. So I had to figure out a way to eliminate from my mind when these things were going to happen. Just forget about when it's going to happen, but keep going. Don't stop. Don't, be praying and wishing for it to happen and take no action. Because my friends, they told me, in the word attraction is action. And the way to attract the things that we want, we have to take action. So that was an element that I knew was necessary. Okay, I know it's necessary for me to take action. I have to move to make something happen. I can't just sit here and just, things are just going to start coming to me and falling in my lap. So I know that action is key. Okay, then the next step was just that. So you kind of like, you can either engineer it that way, or you can reverse engineer it. You can project in your mind, okay, you can say, I've already achieved the dreams that I want. I've already manifested. Everything that I envisioned for myself is already done. It's already done. We're done. You know what I'm saying? It's already set in stone. In the future, I've already accomplished all of that. Okay, then you work back, you reverse engineer and say, okay, how did I do it? How did I get it done? What were the steps that I took to getting it done? Then you just, list those out either in your mind or on paper, and then you execute. You say day in, day out, you say this day, this day, this day, and you just build from there. So I know that there's plenty of different methods and everybody's situation is different, but I do believe that there is a method for everyone. And all you have to do is find the one that works for you. It doesn't matter if this one works for that person or this one works for that person. They all might work in certain circumstances, but what works for you, that's important. Yeah.
that's fantastic, and that's my takeaway for today. Is I have a meeting Monday about this project again. We're meeting twice a week, just for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was afraid to commit to a launch date for this project, and now I'm going to get with my guys and say, let's commit to a date first, And then let's figure out all the steps it's going to require to hit that date. And then we'll delegate it out and we'll make it happen and we'll commit to it. That's a great strategy. I think it's time to put that into action. I have a meeting tomorrow, so it's perfect.
Yeah, man.
It's the perfect thing. It's the perfect message and idea that I needed for my meeting tomorrow. That's why I love these conversations, because I can learn, you can learn, and anyone who's listening to this can learn and try it in your own life. If you're listening to this message, what's that one thing you want to get done? Commit to a date and then reverse engineer it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So what are you working on? I know you've got video going on. I think you have some kind of multi-day thing going on. You're fasting. You're doing a bunch of things. I can't even keep up. What are you up to?
I am doing a bunch of things. It's tough to maintain that balance. At the core of everything for me is meditation. I mean, I'm out here right now in Lake Elsinore, California. It's almost like a retreat of my own, just being able to be out here in the solitude and really hone in and focus. But, I've got YouTube, of course, I've got the podcast, and now I'm also working on a book. I haven't told many people, but that is something that I'm working on. But, figuring out where in my life that I can utilize the magnifying glass method. And I talked about this in one of my podcast episodes, but my mind, the way it works sometimes, especially now that I have all this time, I'm not eating, I have all this time on my hands. I start to think, okay, what can I do? What can I do? Like, how can I learn more about marketing? How can I learn more about podcasting? How can I learn more about YouTube? All this stuff starts to take your energy. Your energy gets dispersed and starts to go in all these different areas, and it can be very hard to focus. So the one main thing that I am making sure to continue to focus on regardless is one podcast episode every day, and just continuing that trend, making sure that at the very least, at least I do that, at least I give that, has become my focus, because somebody taught me, Nick, this was powerful for me, brother.
Yeah.
It is the magnifying glass method. Is where you take a magnifying glass outside in the hot sun and you take a sheet of paper. What happens when you focus that magnifying glass in one area?
It gets really hot. All the energy goes there.
It gets so hot that it can, it's able to, with that amount of focused energy, it's able to even start a small flame, even maybe burn a hole through the paper.
Yep.
But you go outside, take the same circumstances, same situation, same magnifying glass, same sun in the sky beaming down, but instead you just kind of lightly wave the magnifying glass around the paper and just wave it in different areas. Nothing happens. You know what I mean? So I had to learn that, in order to really, you want to make things happen fast, focus. If you to focus that and harness that energy in one area, it will catch flame. It will start bursting. Before you know it, you got a fire on your hands. You know what I'm saying?
Now people are expecting that next episode.
Yeah, I did an episode on that. It's called The Power of Focus on the Open Palm. But, I feel like a lot of great individuals have already done that. They started with one thing. They started with one thing, one vision, one thing in mind. All they wanted to do was one thing, no matter how big or small it was. And then after that one thing became successful, then they moved on to the next thing and then the next thing. But it's really tough. You can do it, but it's really tough to gain a major amount of success in just multiple areas at one time.
Agreed. There's a great book called Crossing the Chasm, which is really a popular book in Silicon Valley that a lot of startups go by. Is they focus on one product and they become the best at that one niche product. And once they capture the market and it's theirs, and then they expand into other products. Amazon's the perfect example, the biggest, most obvious. They started with books and only books.
Right.
And once they became the online marketplace for books, then they expanded into DVDs, then they expanded into CDs and videos, and then they slowly went from a bookstore to the everything store.
Right,
And
right.
that was his plan all along. I listened to Bezos' biography, and
Man.
that was his original plan,
Mhm.
to go from a
It's
bookstore to an
powerful.
everything store. And so that's perfect. You have your one thing you're focused on. You're going to get extremely good at it. You're very focused on it. And once you capture the market by storm or the world by storm, then you can go on to other things and build a brand around that one thing. That's awesome.
Right, right.
I
You know,
think,
it's yeah. Go ahead.
no, go for it.
No, I was just gonna
Take
say
it.
like uh sometimes, you know, when you're planting seeds, you may not even realize, like, if you're so focused, you know, like when is it gonna happen, and you're impatient, you know, something I read said that don't dig up the seed, you know, to check and see if it's still growing, type thing. You know what I mean? It's like the thing, success can happen anywhere at any time. If you're just continuously doing it day in, day out, and you're focused, then when you least expect it, you know what I mean, you can turn around and it'll be a whole crop, a whole harvest that you've yielded, you know, when you were just focused on single goals at a time. So I think Jeff Bezos, that's a perfect example. I mean, I know of people that said that they thought Amazon was going to be nothing. They were like, oh, this little bookstore, you know, this little, you know, they really threw shade on Amazon. They never thought it was going to be what it is today. But like you said, through the power of focus, you know, we see what's happened.
Yeah, the most valuable company in the world, the
Right.
wealthiest human being ever in the world. So
Yeah.
started with that one thing, the focus. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Jerome, this has been a great conversation. I like to keep these short and sweet. I think there's so much value in what we've already talked about. I'd like to just end it here, and I'd like to get you back on here soon.
Of course, man. I'll gladly, brother.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, Jerome. I'm looking forward to hearing from you again. And for those of you who don't already know, he has a podcast called the Open Palm Podcast. Where can people find it, Jerome?
They can find it on Anchor.fm. They can find it on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcast, I believe Stitcher as well. There's multiple podcast platforms that you can find it on. So pretty much your favorite podcast directory, you know, wherever you get yours, you'll find mine. Just type in the name and it should pull up for you.
So the Open Palm Podcast. What's a quick? What would you say? What's the Open Palm Podcast about?
Okay. So on the Open Palm, we talk about motivating themes, inspiring messages, and thought-provoking ideas and topics. So I always say on the Open Palm, it is, you know, the Open Palm is like the way of the Open Palm is, you know, understanding our place in the world, using our skills accordingly, greeting the world with an open palm instead of a closed fist. So it's being able to be in harmony with the things around us, keeping our mind open like a parachute. You know, it doesn't do us any good closed, and just understanding that, you know, things can be very different than we realize. But just being open to that and being available to be receptive to more knowledge. You know, kind of emptying our cup with the knowledge that we have and allowing more to come in. Yeah.
What is the difference between an open palm and a closed fist? What does that?
Mm.
Expand upon that.
Well, good question. You know, I got this concept actually, I got this concept from different places. The first time I got it was from a video game, but I do like the way that Dr. Wayne Dyer describes it. Dr. Wayne Dyer, in one of his dialogues, his audios I was listening to, he talks about having your hand open. And, you know, if you have a closed fist and you reach your hand in the water, if you have a closed fist, you reach your hand in the water in the river and you try to grab a hold of the water, you pull your closed fist, your hand out of the water, you realize you don't have any. You know what I'm saying? It's empty. But if you allow your hand to remain open and you just dip your hand in the river, in the water, and just allow the water to pass through you, allow it to flow, you know, not trying to clutch and hold on to it, but allow it to flow, you realize that you have all of it. You can experience all of the water with an open hand, you know, instead of a closed fist. So that's kind of like how, how I view it. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, there you have it. That's the Open Palm podcast. Choose your
Yeah.
place to listen, your favorite platform. So thank you again, Jerome. I look forward to having you again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Have a wonderful day, brother.
Thank you. You too.